think a lot of people think that if they're not participating or they're not into what's considered normal sex, maybe there's something wrong with them. Or I've often heard people say, maybe something happened to me and I can't remember.
Right.
And it's now made me want this sexually.
Right. You know it, and I think that's, of all the criticisms with 50 Shades, I think that was one of the things that really portrayed BDSM in a very bad light, in that the main character, Christian, his kink was because he had had such a tortured past and therefore he was, a control freak BDSM guy. Whereas I don't think there's anyone that can tell you why people have their particular psychosexual makeup. There's no one, because each person is very individual. You have your own history, you have your own first experiences of eroticism, of sexuality. And so when you look at like the huge range of individuality and people's sexual interests, what is normal? Is normal where you have missionary sex every night and you don't think about anything? That's rubbish. Everyone has their particular kind of kink. It's just that some people feel comfortable with them and some people don't. And I think the easier, the more comfortable we are with our sexual expressions, whether you call it kink or normal sex or vanilla, there's no such thing as vanilla sex, the more you're able to own up to it, the more fun you're going to have.
Yeah.
The more you're able to incorporate and integrate your life with your sexual experience.
I think what's interesting on the topic of 50 Shades of Grey and BDSM, after that movie came out, so many people were saying, well, who would want to willingly be humiliated? Who would want to willingly be treated like this by their partner? And what's your response to that?
I love that so much, because so let's take BDSM as like a power play, right? Whatever the setup is, whether there's bondage involved, so someone's being roped or someone's being tied or someone's being flogged, or there's some sort of wax play or latex, it doesn't matter, whatever your look is. There's some sort of power exchange. Someone is wielding power, the other one is consensually handing it over. And so why people get off on that, I don't know. But you know what? Here's the difference between kinksters who own that space and people who play in BDSM, is that they name it. They consent to be there. I know a lot of so-called vanilla normal relationships in which there is a ton of abuse, humiliation, they treat each other badly. Neither of them want that. They don't like it, they don't want it, but they do it. And so, you have to look at what is a healthy relationship, people who can create boundaries in how they respond to people. Why do they know why they respond to it? Because it's important to understand that BDSM or kink or anything like that doesn't always have to be about sex. It's about an emotional play. It's about sensation sometimes. And so what is normal and what is healthy and why people would want to do something, who knows? I'm not a psychologist, and I don't believe there's any psychologist that would be able to tell you. I do know, though, that there is some talk that for sadists or for masochists, people who like getting pain, that their pleasure and pain senses are wired funny. And so they will literally feel pleasure when what would seem like pain is inflicted. And I know from my experience that there's a very different sense of sensation when it comes to flogging, for example. And there are loads of hormones. It's a whole chemical reaction. Your adrenaline, your cortisol, everything just goes into overdrive, and you get a rush out of it. So physically, there is a good rush from it.
Yeah.
But why people like it, who knows?
Well, you said that fetish doesn't only have to be about sex. It can be about emotion. What do you mean by that?
So let's say, for example, I go into a play with someone, and the play is sensory play. So the idea is that for example, the play is I am cuffed and my eyes are blindfolded. So control is taken away from me. I consent to go into a space where this happens. Let's say the person who is managing this space for me or holding the space for me is using sensations. So they use ice, they use wax, they play nice music, they put on theater. Because at the heart of it also, when you put on any kind of play, you're creating theater.
Yeah.
Because it is a theater of the mind. It is a sex where theater of the mind is paramount. And so in that case, there isn't technically what we would understand as being sex. There's no penetrative sex, no one's touching my genitals, no one's touching my breasts, and yet I'm getting such a sensory kick out of it that I might actually get off in it. Sometimes emotionally, physically. There's a huge range.